Newsflash, if you are worried about all of the pieces that Georgia is missing from the last couple of years, the rest of the contenders in college football are in a similar situation. Everybody's in the same boat. A lot of really talented players are moving on and going to the NFL. That is the case for all of the major players in college football. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Tennessee. All of them are dealing with the same thing that Georgia is dealing with. Turnover, right? Georgia has a lot of it. Georgia has more of it than perhaps it has in 5 or 6 years. But that's the same situation for all of these other places. They're dealing with major pieces moving on. There's only, Penn State out of all of them. And I'm going to go through this so you guys are aware and say, oh, okay, well, I didn't realize that guy was gone. They're not going to be as good without that guy or whatever, however you want to take that. But Georgia is not on its own ship when it comes to missing really good players and having to move on from those guys. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post trying to give you what the landscape of college football is. Dean, myself, and Mackenzie Brooks, my friend from CBS Sports, we talked about this a little bit. We were talking about what the Dogs' outlook was for 2025, and she was just saying, look, like Tennessee, she kept bringing up Tennessee. They're missing some guys, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what, man? A lot of programs are missing some really important pieces. You look at the betting odds, right? Ohio State, this is the order of the favorites to win the national championship next season. I'll give you the top 6 or 7. Ohio State, Texas, Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame. They've got Tennessee at number 7. We could just talk about those programs. Obviously, we know that Georgia is getting a pretty much new offensive line. It's got new receivers. On defense, it's certainly losing a lot of key contributors from the last few years. I don't even know if I have to name those guys for you. If you're here, you know about that for the most part. So perhaps no program is going through as much turnover as Georgia. Now, there is a portion of people, and I kind of sit in that category because of the regression we saw in 2024 for Georgia football, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is new pieces can be a good thing too. There's a quote from How I Met Your Mother, new is always better. That's not true, but it could be in this situation. So just looking around Oregon, right? They're one of the top favorites. Well, is it really that much better for the Ducks? They're going through a huge offensive line change. I'm looking right now. I don't want to bring this up because I don't know if it's copyright or not, so I'm not going to bring this up. Our Lads does a really good job with the depth charts, but they're missing a ton of their offensive line. They're missing their most productive receiver in Tez Johnson. He's moving on. Trayshawn Holden, another productive receiver. He's moving on. Jordan James, one of the plethora of really good running backs in this upcoming NFL draft. He's out the door. Dylan Gabriel out the door. So they're going through another quarterback change there under Dan Lanning. On defense, Jordan Birch, one of their best defenders. A lot of their defense. This is a team that is built off of the transfer portal largely on that side of the ball. To me, I look at Oregon, I say, hey, that's a lot of turnover. Maybe they will not be the number 1 team heading into the college football playoff the way they were a year ago. Let's go to the SEC. I'm going to jump around here a little bit, but the SEC, Texas, the favorite to win the conference, the team that was the runner-up to Georgia in the conference and lost to the Dogs twice last season. Well, we know part of why people are very excited about Texas, and that is because the keys are being handed to Arch Manning. He's a Manning. He's athletic. There's a lot of excitement around him. I get it. And I think he's really good, and I think that their offense will be good. But what you need to be reminded of is their best offensive players are out the door. Obviously, Isaiah Bond wasn't exactly what they wanted out of him, but he's gone. Matthew Golden, a very exciting receiver from this past season. He's climbing up NFL draft boards. He made a ton of plays against Georgia and Arizona State there towards the end of the year. He's out the door. NFL tackles like Kelvin Banks Jr., gone. Gunnar Helm, one of their best offensive weapons and one of the best tight ends in this NFL draft class, gone. You go to the defensive side of the ball. A lot of their defensive line moving on. One of the best secondaries in college football, maybe the best secondary in college football last season. Well, guess what? Their 2 best secondary players, Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron, they're going to the NFL. So Texas is dealing with a ton of turnover. Ohio State. Now, I get why Ohio State's the favorite. I get that there is a lot of excitement with Julian Sayin, and the clips that I've seen of him, the kid is really good, and he could be really good. And they've still got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and just plethora of talent everywhere that has played. And obviously they're coming off a national championship. But man, Emeka Egbuka was huge for them the last few years. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, they're going to the NFL. They're losing their All-American offensive lineman, Seth McLaughlin. On defense, guys that really mattered the last few years. Jack Sawyer, Ty Hamilton, Tyleik Williams, JTT, I can't pronounce his last name, Denzel Burke. A ton of production is going for Ohio State. Yes, they, in my eyes, have the best defender and the best offensive player in college football. And they got some younger guys like Edric Houston, a guy that I went and saw at Buford a lot, that's really talented. So yes, Ohio State still has a lot. But nonetheless, coming off a national championship, going through a lot of turnover. Penn State, not as much so, but yes, their two best players are out the door. Tyler Warren on offense. People are comparing this guy to Rob Gronkowski. That's a lofty comparison for me. But yes, Tyler Warren was one of the best players in college football this last season. And Abdul Carter on the defensive side of the ball, along with Jalen Kimber, Kobe King, and other really good players on that defense. But Abdul Carter might be the first pick in the NFL draft next month. He's not going to be playing for Penn State this coming season. The running back staying and Drew Aller staying and hold on to a lot of their offensive line is exciting if you're a Penn State fan. But nonetheless, they're losing their best players. And those players are a huge reason as to why they made it to the Final Four, why they made it to the Orange Bowl and barely lost and was almost in the national championship. Tennessee, I just looked at Notre Dame. This is the situation I know the least about. But they're going to go through a quarterback change. And I don't know much about C.J. Carr, who's their projected starter at this point. But they are losing that entire secondary, which was also one of the best secondaries in college football. So they're not without loss. Tennessee, the other huge threat, it seems, in the SEC. I'm not evaluating Alabama in this situation. They are, to me, a little bit of an unknown as well. And if I feel like I know more about them, I'll come on here and talk to you about the Tide. But with Tennessee, they are the third favorite to win the SEC behind Texas and then Georgia. Tennessee is third. And obviously, Georgia has to go up to Knoxville early on in the season, and that's going to be tough. It's tough to play there. I've been there a couple times. It's one of the loudest environments in college football. It's a big stadium. The place shakes. Well, they're losing Brew McCoy. They're losing DeAndre Thornton. They're losing the most productive running back in the SEC from last year, Dylan Sampson. On defense, they're losing Omar Norman Lott and James Pierce Jr. Some of these guys are projected to be first-round picks. And were huge reasons why they've had success. So if people are curious, freaking out, whatever the word is, about how is this going to work with new pieces for Georgia, I want you to just take a look at the rest of the top of college football and rest assured that this is the situation for everybody. Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, Tennessee, Penn State, Georgia, all of the contenders at the top who are likely going to be there towards the end of this thing next January are dealing with major turnover in key pieces. Now, yes, when you look at Georgia's roster and you look at the flips, it's the most. It's the most. But Texas is losing a lot of what brought them there. Ohio State, Penn State, like I've already said it. So I think that there should be a little bit less concern after you've listened to this, if that's something that was on your mind. The college football, they're all in the same place. There's a lot of turnover. It's different. The transfer portal's there, NIL's there. Things are different. And a lot of the talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball from the past few years, they're going off to the NFL now. And this is a highly stacked defensive draft. It's a highly stacked running back draft. You heard a lot of these guys. They're moving on. And Georgia's in as good a position as anybody. Doesn't mean they're in the best position, but they're up there. Thanks for watching.